welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. I also want to say that we are coming to you universal-wide. We're all over the universe with Charlton and Big C Sports, Big C, because the iHeartRadio network, radio waves, they travel from the interplanetary solar system. I think that's what NASA's working on. They're trying to put people on Mars. I think they're going to start broadcasting Charlton and Big C Sports on Mars. Big C, so we'll take that. And I also want to say thank you to all of our listeners in Latin America. So bienvenidos to you. And also you good old boys in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, I love the country of Canada. I'm still working on it, Big C. I got 2 more game suspicions for the Canada messing up their national anthem. But I love it very much, as well as the good old boys in Australia. Even met someone from Dubai, Big C, and they've heard of Charlton and Big C Sports, and of course the great United States of America. Big C, how are things going down south where you are, Big C?
Everything's wonderful. I listened to you talk about universal radio, Charlton. This reminds me of a kid with 2 tin cans in a string when we put it together. We had the original cell phone where we stand about 20 feet from each other and talk back and forth. Our technology is advanced since then.
Oh, I'm telling you, technology is something else, because I'm talking to so many people now. Because you tell them you're with iHeartRadio, they know who it is. You know who knows iHeartRadio as much as anybody, Big C? It's not just the millennials, it's the kids, because all the famous singers like Usher or Katy Perry, they're all on iHeartRadio, and even Jay-Z, and they're all on iHeartRadio. So
does that mean that we hit cool or something like that?
Well, I have no idea, but I know that, what's that rapper's name? Kanye West, he had to cancel a concert, I think, in New York City, because he said that Kim Kardashian, I think she was held up at gunpoint in Paris, unfortunately. So hopefully everything turned out well with that. But he said that they got over $10 million in jewelry and cash. I just want to ask you, who in the world carries $10 million of jewelry and cash? Haven't they heard of a bank, Big C?
Well, let me describe who carries it. I think the letters start with F-O-O-L.
Okay.
One of those people.
I mean, come on. I know she's good looking and pretty and all that stuff, but maybe they heard that Wells Fargo Bank stole more people than those guys who held her up, Big C. So they can't put the money at Wells Fargo Bank. And speaking of a bank, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, your standard of the world. And also, when you test drive it, you can only get it there brand new. When you go down and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And as we always say, Big C, yours is the one that has all the mud over the 22-inch rims. Big C, your thoughts on that?
Hey, you can use that mud as a sunblock, so you don't have to worry about your paint face.
Yeah.
That's the plus part about that. And if somebody touches your car, you can find it because the sun will be dripping off of it.
That is so funny. It's funny, one of the greatest movies, I tell you that Charlton and Big C Sports is now intergalactic. Not only do we have a worldwide audience, but actually the signal of iHeartRadio travels throughout the universe. And you think about it, NASA is communicating with a space probe they launched over 20 years ago, Big C. So we're also out in Pluto, Big C. But you remind me so much of the great science fiction movie Star Wars. I think, was it Han Solo? They had what's called the Millennium Falcon. I think it was Star Wars. Now, he always had a dirty spaceship, but him and that big gorilla that they have, they always made that ship fly, Big C. Chewbacca, see? Do you carry Chewbacca around in your Escalade also, Big C?
Well, there's some hairy creatures in the back of it, Charlton. I couldn't say much about their lifespan at that point, but there's some hairy things in the back of the truck.
So it's been Chewbacca that ate all the catfish. Is that what you're trying to say, Big C? Chewbacca ate the catfish? But speaking of eating, I'm telling you, there's so much going on in the world of sports, Big C, and we have the great Vin Scully retiring. You had his last game in San Francisco, California, in the Bay Area, and a great scene with the great Vin Scully is he actually had a picture with Willie Mays, probably the greatest San Francisco Giant ever. But to see a picture with him and Willie Mays, he actually was calling games when Willie Mays was playing. And then also there's another great broadcaster, I think. Did you say, is it Dick Enberg that's also retiring, Big C?
Dick Enberg, Charlton, is retiring. I kind of went under the radar. Dick Enberg has covered over 40 years of quality broadcasting with all of the networks, Charlton. He's covered every major sporting event in America and around the world. When you think about it, he's done Super Bowls, he's done World Series, He's done Olympics.
Yeah.
He's done the U.S. Open. He's done the Masters, Charlton. He's done NBA. He's done college basketball. He was the voice of UCLA when Don Wooden was the coach.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
That's good knowledge.
He's been the broadcaster for the last 6 years of the San Diego Padres. So he is the Scully and leading baseball at the same time. But when you look at the total body of Dick Enberg's work, you know, he spent for years, he was the voice of NBC NFL football, Charlton.
Yeah.
This man encumbered sports as a professional. We talked about the great Vin Scully, second to none. But Dick Enberg is there as his equal as far as quality. He's 82 years old. He's leaving the broadcast booth. He's given many of fond memories to every sports fan in America and across the globe because of his expertise and knowledge and passion for the game of sports.
Well, when you think of that, I remember working a game with NBC Sports. It was a Super Bowl down in San Diego. I believe Super Bowl 33 had the Denver Broncos, and they were led by John Elway, and they beat the Green Bay Packers led by Brett Favre. And Enberg did that game with NBC Sports. I was very blessed to be flown to the Super Bowl by NBC Sports, and I learned so much just about being around these great broadcasters, Big C. And I know you have over 40 years in the business too. I just think that this broadcast business is such a great gig, and for everyone trying to get into the sports business, just do what Big C said. You got to do your own thing. Go make your own show happen. You got to make your luck happen, Big C. And when it comes to making luck happen, look at the San Francisco Giants with the great Vin Scully actually getting into the playoffs over his Los Angeles Dodgers. So that was a great game in San Francisco. Actually a great series. The Giants had to win out, and they actually did. St. Louis also went out, but because the Giants had a one-game head start against them, they're going to be going to New York. You know, your side of the world, Big C, they're playing the Mets and in the wild card game, and the winner of that game, they get to go on and face the Cubs. Big C, your thought on that series?
Well, you know, it's just marvelous time of year. You know, we have October. October means meaningful baseball games every night, Charlton. And the Giants, this is an even year, which they have had a tendency of the past latter part of this decade.
Yeah, the even years.
The World Series.
The even years, yeah.
So, you know, anything can happen. You know, I look forward to watching baseball now because it's too long during the summer, too hot.
Yeah.
But now in the Fall Classic, it's just a magical time for baseball.
Yes, a magical time for baseball. And I actually thought the Giants, they're my pick to win the World Series this year, even though they had a tough start. Chicago, what a Cinderella story for them. They're always trying to win, but, you know, they have a lot of history to overcome. And also, I want to speak about something, too, as we get into the world of so much happening. It's going to be a good show today, Big C, because it's just almost like a smorgasbord of sports to cover. But before we get into it, I just want to mention one more thing about this, you know, treating people fair and Black Lives Matter movement. There's a movie maker. Her name is DuVernay, and she has a movie called 13th, Big C. Now, for everyone, whether it's a Mike Ditka or a Boomer Esiason or a Trent Dilfer, would you believe that the United States, the population is only 5% of the world's population? Would you believe that the United States is 25% of the world's prisoners on the planet Earth? 25% are in the United States. And there was 2 million people were incarcerated in America in 2014. Think about Donald Trump wanting to, what do you call it, frisk and search or stop and frisk. Now, of those 2 million people that were incarcerated in the United States in 2014, 40% were black men. 40% were black men incarcerated in the United States, and most were incarcerated over doing the same thing that our white counterparts do, Big C. And I'll mention this one more fact because guys like Boomer Esiason and Trent Dilfer, they don't know when Colin Kaepernick was standing up for Black Lives Matter, they have to understand this, that it's always disturbed me also because I'm very well read, that there are multi-billion-dollar companies in the United States that profit off of locking up black men. It's called the Prison Industrial Complex, and Eisenhower warned us about that when he was president. So I just want for the intelligent people, they know that, but there's a lot of ignorant people. They have no idea what Kaepernick's talking about. I just want to get a few thoughts on you, Big C, when you talk about that, because we all love sports dominated by black men, but the criminal justice system makes more money off of black men than sports teams, Big C.
Well, Charles, you have to be realistic to the population of the United States. 13.7% African Americans. 13.7.
Yeah.
And when you talk about 40% of the prison population being African American, that's a total
No, that's just black men. That's just black men, Big C, not including black women. Black men make up 40%.
That's an unjust proportion of society, Charles.
Yeah.
Because now you're bringing in all the other races to make up the 60%.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the prejudice towards African Americans in the criminal justice system, and it's been throughout history.
Yeah.
Black men have been convicted just because.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the reason they've been convicted, just because.
So why isn't no one protesting that, Big C? Why don't we have people protesting that, Big C?
Well, Charles, when I talked about that, the attorney generals of all 50 states need to come together and talk about the problem we have and how they allow it to perpetuate.
Yeah.
When you think about the prison system in America, it's not run by the government. It's traded on Wall Street.
Yeah.
It is a stock. You can buy stock in prisons in the United States. The government built them, but they sold them off to private entities.
Yeah. And
so private entities are making money. And they're charging the taxpayers for it.
Yeah.
They're charging over $40,000 a year per house. Okay, they spend $4,000 or less to educate a child in the United States.
Yeah.
But they'll spend $40,000 a year to house and incarcerate a prisoner.
Yeah.
So there's an economics in this. It's not about saving society. It's more dangerous on the outside, probably, Charlton, than it is in prison, because when we look at the death rate in America from homicides and other incidents, it's safer to be in prison.
And that's,
even though it's an unjust proportion of African-American men in it.
So I really want people to realize, as we talk about sports, and since African-Americans, since integration and Jackie Robinson, people have to understand that these sports teams have become, instead of millionaires, they become multi-billionaires, mostly on the black athlete. So just keep in mind, whenever you tell someone to shut up and sit down and stand up for the national anthem, there's more money made by the prison industrial complex on black labor than there are sports teams. Keep that in mind the next time you talk about what are they complaining about, Big C. And as we get into the world of sports, I just want to say this segment is sponsored by your California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? I keep saying that Powerball, that Mega Million, we're going to hit that ball, Big C. You know, don't be discouraged by not winning every single week, Big C.
Let me tell you how to hit that ball.
Yeah.
Get a baseball bat.
Yes.
It's October now.
Okay.
All you have to do is walk in the store with a baseball bat. You'll hit a home run.
Well, we love baseball. We love the home run. Also, the Americans won the Ryder Cup, too. So congratulations for that good old boys winning the Ryder Cup over Europe. But I just want to touch on a little bit, too, Big C, with the world of football. And I know we were talking about college football. We'll hit that first. Just some great football games over the weekend. And it seemed like the Clemson and Louisville game, that was like a preview of a national championship game. Ironically, Las Vegas had the over-under at 57. There were 78 points scored in that game. I thought Louisville had a chance to win, but you got to credit also Clemson. That was just a great game. I want to get your thoughts on these two quarterbacks. I think they should be 1 and 2 in the Heisman, even though it may not pan out that way. But your thoughts on these guys, because, again, we talked about Jim Crow. They would not have been allowed to play for Clemson or Louisville. Your thoughts, Big C?
Back in 1970, neither one of them would have been able to don either one of those uniforms, Charles.
Yeah.
But when you look at this matchup with Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson, you know, an epic performance by both quarterbacks, Charles. You know, Deshaun had a lot to prove coming into this game because Clemson's offense had been lackluster.
Yeah.
But he opened it up. He caught his stride. And you got to give him praise for that. He came into the season the Heisman front runner.
Right.
And he looked like the Heisman Trophy candidate in this game. But Lamar Jackson, Charlton, you can't take anything away from him. He was harassed and sacked all night long by Clemson 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
But his receivers let him down in the game, Charlton.
Yeah.
You know, there were some critical calls that were not made by the officials. There was one in the end zone that should have been an interference in the first half.
Yeah.
Because the back had grabbed up the tight end, and you know, no officials saw the play. But the play at the end of the game when his receiver didn't fight for the first down.
Yeah.
You know, you can see the frustration on Lamar. He said, I just should have kept the ball myself and ran for it.
Yeah.
But it's a team game, so he's trying to keep everybody incorporated in the offense, Charlton. But just a marvelous game for football.
Excellent game.
You're not going to see a better matchup this season at any point.
Well,
you'll see some games with points.
Yeah.
But as far as tactitional play from both sides, offense and defensively, this was the best that we've had this season.
Well, when you also look at the top-ranked Alabama, they're 5-0. They took care of Kentucky easily by the score of 34-6. It was Ohio State, which I still think is the number one team in the country, just based on how they play. They had a blowout win, 58-0 over Rutgers, Big C. Now, if you look at Alabama, they have another tough game coming up this week because they're at number 17, Arkansas. Your thoughts on Alabama? Any chance of a letdown in that game with Nick Saban, Big C?
Well, this is going to be a hard-fought battle. Two teams that like to run the football, even though, Alabama's opened it up a little more offensively with Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
But Brett Bielema, knows how to control the line of scrimmage. They had a very close game last year. Alabama won, I believe it was off an interception. It was a one-point game, ironically. 13-14. They had missed extra point is what it was.
Yeah.
13-14. So Alabama just barely squeaked by against Arkansas last week. And when you go up and play a big physical football team such as Arkansas, Charlton, it's never an easy road. Alabama has had some tough games. You remember the Mississippi game 3 weeks ago that they won with 2 defensive interceptions for touchdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So Alabama, it hasn't been that easy. Nick Saban, as he said, his butt chewing against Lane Kiffin.
Did you say Lane Kiffin, the next USC candidate for a coach, Big C?
Well, other than USC, Charlton, they haven't had an easy road,
Yeah. Oh, come on. That's a low blow, Big C. That's a low blow.
That's the only easy game they've had this year. Everybody else has got tough on.
You're going to get a phone call from Lynn Swann any day now. Now, a lot of people say, who is Big C? Lynn Swann knows who Big C is, Big C.
It's season down here all year long, man. We can't tell a swan from a goose.
That's funny, Big C. That's funny. You're on a roll right now, Big C. Speaking of being on a roll, we talked about the great Ohio State. They're going to play Indiana, and that's Saturday at ESPN game. Now, Clemson, if you talk about being primed for a letdown, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. They're just too good with Watson at quarterback. They play at Boston College on ESPN. That's a 7:30 game East Coast time. Now, a game that I thought would be really close, and I thought Michigan had a chance dropping their first game, Big C. You just got to credit Coach Harbaugh. They're ranked number 4 in the country. They're 5-0 in the season. They also play at Rutgers on Saturday, but they had a close win against Wisconsin. That could have been a game that could have gone either way. Your thoughts on Michigan playing the first time they have not scored over 40 points, Big C?
Well, they had a tough, hard-nosed team in Wisconsin. Everybody knows those good old boys from the Northeast up there can play some hard-mouth football, and they've gotten back to that smash-mouth football. Michigan had some great defense played in that game also, Charlton.
Yeah.
They have this defensive back that is just committed, is one of the best college football players in the country. He had this one-handed interception at one point in the game. It was just like,
amazing stuff. Yeah.
You thought he was a receiver. He just went up, grabbed the ball, turning backwards.
Yeah.
Brought it in with one hand. But, as you say, you give credit to Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
The talent that he's playing with, 70% of the talent was on the roster when he showed up.
Yeah, wait until he gets his own guys, Big C, especially with the airplane they give him.
It's amazing what an individual coach can do. You can walk in, you can motivate, you can inspire, you can give new philosophy and life to individuals. And that's what Jim Harbaugh did when he came to Michigan. He infused all that into the players. They bought into his philosophy. It's been successful.
Yeah.
The most amazing thing about that game, Charlton.
What's that?
And not a lot of people realize this. There was 114,000 people in the stands.
114,000 people? Man, that's like
2 years ago, Michigan had a game with less than 100,000 people. I believe it was like 86,000 people.
Yeah.
In the big house. It looked cavernous at that point.
Yeah.
But 114,000 people there are witnessing the maize and blue return to what Bo Schembechler had created there when Jim Harbaugh was the player.
Well, Big C, 114,000 people. That reminds me of a kind of a family reunion at your place, Big C. You got some great, what they call great pedigree, Big C, back south, Big C. I don't know what you guys do without cable TV, but I think I figured it out when I saw 114,000 at your family reunion, Big C. Also, speaking of 114,000, you look at Houston, ranked number 5 in the country at 5-0. They play Navy coming up on Saturday. They also beat Connecticut 42-14. Now, this is a game that you actually picked. I thought Stanford would have enough, but Big C, they went up to the Great Northwest, the University of Washington Huskies, on a Friday night on Puget Sound. And the Huskies, they have a roar in that stadium. Maybe there's something in the air that makes it so loud, but they only have 72,000 fans, but they really put a whooping on Stanford. I thought they won the game because Stanford's missing 2 defensive backs. They have a great quarterback in Drake Browning, who's out of Sacramento, California. He actually set the high school national record for touchdown passes. This kid had 90 touchdown passes as a senior, and he rarely played in the fourth quarter, Big C. But I think that's what happens when you play on a Saturday night, and then you get back home to Stanford. You got to fly on an airplane to get to Washington on a Thursday night to play a Friday night game. Your thoughts on that game, Big C?
Well, you talk about the noise factor there at Husky Stadium.
Incredible.
It's that metal roof that they have over the stadium that's deflecting all that noise down. But, Chris Peterson has come in and just done a marvelous job there, as we talked about Harbaugh and turning around the Huskies program.
Yeah.
What he's done, Charlton, is he's gone out and recruited speed. Now, this is the same team that Sarkisian was at prior to Peterson.
Yeah.
So when you look at all the seniors on the roster, Steve Sarkisian had recruited these seniors.
Yeah.
But when you look at the underclassmen where the real speed is,
Yeah.
they came in with Peterson. And this guy knows how to recruit. Now, remember, he had Boise State on the national stage.
Oh, yeah, every year.
They beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They challenged a lot of things. They never lost a bowl game. They beat Georgia opening the season, I believe, back in 2011.
Yeah, down in Atlanta.
Back in Georgia.
Yeah.
And so this is a program that has brought in a coach with a winning philosophy. He's not ego-driven. You look at him on the sideline, Charlton, you hardly notice him. You think he's a water boy.
Yeah.
His intensity is internal, and that relates to his players.
Yeah.
And when you look at the enthusiasm, like I said, he reminds the people of Washington of Don James.
Oh, yeah.
Don James was that quiet assassin. That's what you had with Chris Peters.
Yeah.
He's that quiet assassin. He walks tall with a big stick.
Yeah.
Everybody pays attention. And now Washington is ranked in the top 10 for the second consecutive week, Charlton.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And now another big week for Washington. They can't get too high on this because they're going into Oregon. Oregon's lost 3 in a row because they've had some injuries, Big C. But Oregon has beaten Washington the last 12 times they've played, Big C. So something's going to have to change when they show up at Austin Stadium.
Also beat them with speed. Think about how fast Oregon was. Everybody thought Oregon was a track team when Mariota was the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just fascinating to watch this team. It was like you brought in a guy that was faster than the guy that was in before.
Yeah.
You had a quarterback that could outrun defensive backs. But that speed has now been diversified in the Pac-12, and that's why Washington is so fast now. You look at Stanford. Stanford looked a step slow in that game, Charlie.
Yeah.
When you compare the two teams.
Well,
and that was the difference.
Yeah.
It's the speed that Chris Peterson is involved in this Washington game.
Yeah. Well, also, I think fatigue playing a tough game at UCLA where it was a closer game than the score and then having a short week. These are not NFL players. A lot of these guys, they have to go to class at Stanford. It's not like the SEC where they don't even know what school is, Big C. Some of these guys that go to class.
What do you mean don't know what school is? It's not all the time.
Okay, just making sure, Big C. But they actually go to class at Stanford, so that was a tough game for them. Now, and this is another game. Sumlin, remember Sumlin at Texas A&M? He was on the hot seat. They're 5-0. They're ranked number 7 in the country, and they had a nice win. And you think about it. They beat South Carolina 24-13 in a close game. Now, Saturday, they're at number 9, Tennessee. Now, when you think about a gentleman who was on the hot seat at Texas A&M for playing in the toughest conference in the country, here's a guy that could be, he's one more win away from being in the first place in the SEC. They're just behind Alabama, Big C. So what is Sumlin doing down in Texas, in the good old boy state, to turn that program around, Big C?
Well, Charlton, this is really a hump game for A&M.
Yeah.
You think about it, A&M started the season last year 5-0.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they hit a hiccup and they lost 4 straight.
Yeah.
Tennessee was the complete opposite. They started the season 1-4 last year. Right now, Tennessee is reminding me of that Auburn team that played in the national championship game against Florida State a couple years ago.
In the Rose Bowl. Yeah.
But when they had the tip pass against Georgia, about 65-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
That the kid took in for the touchdown. Then they had the kick return touchdown against Alabama in the championship game.
I remember that.
They got them to the national championship game. That's what I've seen in Tennessee the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
They were behind 21 points to Florida 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Came back and scored 38 unanswered points against Georgia.
Yeah.
Saturday was one of the more miraculous endings of a football game that you're going to see in college football history.
Yeah.
Georgia throws a touchdown pass with 10 seconds left on the clock, but they get a celebration penalty, Charles.
Yeah.
They lose 15 yards on the kickoff.
Yeah.
Tennessee brings the ball back to off the 46-yard line on Georgia's side of the field.
Yeah.
Dobbs drops back, throws a Hail Mary pass. There's 6 Georgia defensive backs there, Charlton. 6.
Yeah.
1, 2, 6, half the team. And nobody knocked the ball down.
Nobody knocked it down, Big C.
Tennessee was a miraculous coming behind win with just 4 seconds on the clock with their last play. Time runs out when the ball's in there.
Yeah.
They're 5-0. Bruce Davis seems to have some magic working this year.
He might have a lot of magic.
Working with that program.
He's going to need that magic against Texas A&M. Big C, Louisville, they dropped to number 8 in the country. They're 4-1. What a great game against Clemson. And now they play Duke on ESPN on Saturday. They lost a 42-36 game, and the receiver that caught the ball at the end of the game was just about a yard away from a first down. They would have had first and goal, Big C. He didn't fight for it. Yeah, he ran out of bounds.
He's trying to step out of bounds at the same time on the clock. You get the first down. In college football, the clock starts, and that's what I talked about earlier. Lamar Jackson felt let down by his receivers.
Yeah.
Because he had 498 yards, Charlton, in total offense. 498 yards.
Yeah.
And accounted for 5 touchdowns. So how did his performance knock him any lesser in the Heisman favor?
Oh, I think he's even going to be higher because you realize how talented he is. And one thing I bring up, too, we talk about the quarterbacks. It seems like the top quarterbacks in the country or the top teams, they're led by African-American quarterbacks, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Clemson. You look at Houston, you look at Texas A&M and the Louisville quarterback, the Tennessee quarterback. I mean, they're just all over the place. And again, I think about that, and I bring it up because there was a time when they were marginalized. Remember the great Warren Moon we just talked about, the University of Washington? He was not drafted into the NFL, and he was one of the top quarterbacks.
Let me take you back to 2 other great African-American quarterbacks, Charlton.
Yeah.
In modern time that people don't remember. Tony Rice led Notre Dame to a national championship, I believe, somewhere around 1990.
Under Lou Holtz, yeah.
Under Lou Holtz. Didn't get drafted. Charlie Ward won the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
Down in Florida State. Didn't get drafted. Went on to have a 10-year NBA career. So African-American quarterbacks have been out there for a long time. They can have these college programs win. They can win national championships. But for some reason, the NFL says that does not translate to pro football.
Yeah.
But if you let a white quarterback in college win a national championship, Charlton, he's a first-round draft pick.
Well, Big C, I think we bring these things up, and a lot of people, they really don't pay attention to it at times until we bring it up. They do. It's an unspoken rule. Yeah. It's the unspoken rule.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and I understand that. And also, speaking of talking about it later, this segment is sponsored by United Labor. Guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. We're also endorsed by the American Heart Association and the American Cancer Society. We work with all of the unions under the AFL-CIO. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports because we're looking to hire 1,000 insurance brokers to put America's back to work. Unlike Donald Trump, we're not trying to build a wall. We're trying to tear it down, Big C. And as we finish up on the top 25, we have a great game. You know, we talked about the games. They've been great. Miami, they're number 10. Tennessee's number 9. Baylor's 11 in the country. Nebraska's 12 by Wisconsin 13. Mississippi's 14. Stanford fell to number 15, followed by North Carolina at 16. What a great game over Florida State. Arkansas 17, Florida 18, and Boise State at 19. West Virginia rounds out the top 20, Big C. As we get into the world of the NFL, I just know there were some great performances. Matt Ryan down in your neck of the woods had over 500 yards passing for the great Atlanta Falcons. They look like they've been renewed, Big C, and I just want to get your thoughts on Ryan. He finally is earning that $100 million contract, Big C. Your thoughts on Matt Ryan?
Well, 2 games don't make a career, Charlton.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been hot against that team out there on the West Coast where all that show was.
Yeah.
It's like a lack of playing ability. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But,
That's funny.
He lit them up. He has 2 great receivers. You know, Julio Jones has a compliment in Muhammad Sanu.
Yeah.
You know, that he hasn't had the past couple of years. Roddy White had gotten a little old and couldn't separate any longer.
Yeah.
But they brought in Sanu, and Sanu is faster than Jones.
Yeah.
Jones has probably the best hands in all of pro football, but Matt Ryan has got some time because his offensive line and his running game is developed.
Yeah.
His running game, don't supplant that, because that's what allows a quarterback to be successful.
Yeah.
When there's a threat of run, you're going to hold those linebackers in just a little longer. Those underneath routes are going to open. But we've seen the trouble that the Panthers have had this year. You got 2 rookie cornerbacks.
Yeah.
Okay? 2 rookie cornerbacks out there playing, and you playing one of the best receiving tandems in the NFL with a good quarterback when he's on a hot streak, and that's what Ryan's on right now.
Yeah.
So you got to look at the Panthers. They got the hangover from losing the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
They played like crap the first several games.
And Cam Newton has a concussion, whether they want to admit or not, from the Denver game, Big C.
He's had 2 of them. He got another one in his last game against Atlanta.
Yeah.
He's down at the goal line, lollygagging in, and got lit up by a linebacker coming up.
Yeah.
So, Cam Newton should sit for a game.
Yeah.
Get a new perspective on what's going on. And the team is negligent for not putting him down.
Oh, yeah.
Saying that he's constantly passing concussion protocol because of his size.
Yeah.
He's still human. If either the lineman and offensive lineman get a concussion and sit down, you know you should sit down a quarterback.
Oh, I agree with that.
You got to give all the praise to Atlanta for that game and that performance with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, and speaking of other $100 million quarterbacks, we have Jacksonville beating Indianapolis and Andrew Luck, a $145 million contract, Big C. That game is 30-27. That game is played across the pond. Buffalo's shutting out New England 16-0. That's a shock to see the New England offense not score and shut out by the rival Buffalo Bills. Just your thought on that game? Maybe it's good for them to lose the game before Brady comes back, Big C.
Well, Brady comes back with a purpose now. There was a lot of people who had Buffalo as a favorite. Now, you got to realize both of New England's quarterbacks was hurt.
Yeah.
Brissett had the torn ligaments in his left thumb, even though it's not his torn, but it does affect the quarterback. He can only hand off realistically with the right hand now. So the offense is going to be weighted to one side, Charlton, when he's trying to hand off.
Yeah.
He can no longer go with those speed traps to the left side, trying to hand it off. So his ability is going to be limited. He gets hit a few times.
Yeah.
He's going to feel that pain. But Buffalo, if you think about Buffalo, they've beaten New England at least one game in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, they have.
So they have been numbered. And this is always one of those catch games that, you got to be careful. And you're looking past Buffalo, waiting on Brady to come back. So I'm not totally shocked that they were able to win this game.
Well, that's very true, Big C. Another game out here on the West Coast. When I think about games and they talk about quarterbacking, and because I'm out here near San Francisco and also Oakland, I remember the media was so high on Blaine Gabbert and how he has the leadership skills and he has the accuracy and he has all these great things that the media manufactured just because they had, and they just did not like Colin Kaepernick because of his media stance. And we talked about the criminal justice system and what he's really standing up for. But think about this. The 49ers on the Gabbert jumped out to a 14-point lead, and they were outscored, and he was outplayed by a rookie quarterback in Dak Prescott by the score of 24-3 after being down, 14-0 on the road. So here's Dak Prescott. Now, I love broadcasters, but I'm going to bring Troy Aikman and Buck onto the scene because on the first drive that the 49ers had, they gave so much praise to Blaine Gabbert, and I want the kid to succeed because he's a football player. That's great. But they gave so much praise to Blaine Gabbert and saying that he's the answer for them, even though he hasn't won more than 8 games, Big C. But when in his entire pro career. Now, Prescott's won 3 games as a rookie, almost tying half of what Gabbert's done his whole career. They really didn't praise Prescott on his touchdowns because he threw for 2, and he massively led that team to score. Dallas, I think they need to keep him and don't even worry about bringing in Romo. Dallas had 234 passing yards, and San Francisco had 189, but still, no one really talked about how great this young quarterback played as a rookie. They were asking, well, is he really what we need, Big C? I just think that bias is still there by our broadcasters, and Troy Aikman should know better because he's an all-pro quarterback himself, Big C.
Well, he's still a good old boy from Texas, and
yeah.
He's good friends with Tony Romo, and he hates to see somebody being replaced. He was replaced in his career.
Yeah.
But the time comes for every quarterback. But, Gabbert's time has never come.
Yeah.
As much as everybody has tried to groom him based on his physical physique,
yeah,
he doesn't have the mental capacity to play quarterback in the NFL. Anybody can go out there and start a game.
Yeah.
But completing a game and winning games is the difference in the NFL, and that's what the game is all about.
Yeah.
If you look around the league, Charlton, and, other than Cam Newton, you don't have a quarterback playing worse than him, but Cam Newton's been beat up.
Yeah. He has a concussion.
Yeah. And look at Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah.
Down in Miami.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill has been pathetic. He had the lowest QBR rating of all quarterbacks in the NFL this past weekend, Charlton. I think about an 18-6, and he has a $117 million contract.
It's only money, Big C. I mean, you guys had $170 million in coffee cans, so why are you getting that on him? And also more games around the league, too, Big C. The Windy City, we talked about Chicago, and they got a win over Detroit 17-14. But
they must have a quarterback now.
They must have found a quarterback, Big C, one that's not making $100 million. Your thoughts on Chicago getting their first win since last season, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know if it's so much in Chicago, coming out of the zone of Detroit, not really wanting to play football. Matthew Stafford, another one of those $100 million quarterbacks, Charlton. You got to be careful what you pay for in the NFL. You get stuck with one of these quarterbacks and this guaranteed money making $60 million. He's stuck there for 5-6 years that you got to eat.
Yeah.
And that's what we see with Stafford. He started out the season hot. Now all of a sudden he's realized who he is. He woke up one morning and looked in the mirror. Oh, I'm Matthew Stafford. I'm not Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, like Billy,
he started playing like him again.
Well, Billy D. Williams told us in one of his commercials, he said, "Don't let the smooth taste fool you, Big C." And speaking of smooth taste, Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks went across the country and put a whipping on the New York Jets 27-17. What's going on with Kirkpatrick? Does he just have a bad hand? He's thrown, I think, 9 interceptions so far this Big C. I mean, are they ever going to put him on the bench and give their other guys a chance, Big C? Your thoughts on that game?
Well, you got to look at eventually giving Geno Smith a chance to play. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 9 interceptions in the last 2 games. Tied a record over the old opponent of mine, Steve DeBerg.
Yeah.
Steve DeBerg in 1986. Threw 9 interceptions in 2 games. So he tied a dubious NFL record. But he's not the spark right now that the Jets need. For some reason, he's just not confident and comfortable in the pocket. And if he loses one more game, I don't see how the Jets stay with him. If Todd Bowles wants to keep his job, I understand he had that long holdout.
Yeah.
But an African-American coach would be the first one to go in the NFL if he hangs with his quarterback. Geno Smith hasn't proven anything, but he hasn't had enough time on the field. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been a backup starter his majority of his career.
Yeah.
He had a banner season last year. You got to give him credit for that. He's gotten paid for it. But you got these young guns sitting on there, and if you're a young coach, you want to get somebody out there who's going to push you through to your future.
Yeah, I agree with that very much so. And you look at Wilson, he had 288 passing yards in that game, Big C. I'm impressed with Seattle. I think outside of that loss.
Jimmy Graham, Charlton. Jimmy Graham had his first 100-yard reception game as a Seattle Seahawks. So maybe that trade is trying to pay off with Seattle and New Orleans.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very tough team to beat coming down the stretch, Big C. Washington with a 31-20 win over Cleveland. Houston got a win over Tennessee, 27-20. And Atlanta, again, that 48-33 win over Carolina. I think the game of the day, Big C, was Oakland and that young quarterback Carr out of Fresno State, where they come from behind win over the Baltimore Ravens, snapping the Ravens' undefeated streak so far this season, 28-27. Carr, he has a connection with the Crabtree, and I'm telling you, something happened when Del Rio went for 2 down in New Orleans. This Oakland team is a little bit different. Khalil Mack, even though he only got his first sack of the season, he causes so much pressure to block him on the offensive line, always being double teamed. This is win for Oakland. It's a game that they needed to win, but they really have to beat San Diego when they come back to the West Coast, Big C. Your thoughts on Oakland and then Baltimore? What a great game.
Well, you know, Charlton, they have to keep pace with Denver. Denver's undefeated on the season. And Oakland, to travel across country into Eastern time
twice
and get a victory is a huge feat. I don't care what level of football you're playing. It's just a time difference.
Yeah.
Because you're playing the game 3 hours off your normal body clock. And so that's a big difference. But Oakland, like you said, needed this win. Carr has been solid.
Oh, he's lights out.
Crabtree is when you utilize Crabtree in that offense, Charlton, and not worry so much about Cooper.
Yeah.
Crabtree will get you the business. He's been to Super Bowls. He's been to AFC Championship games, Charlton. He's a solid receiver. And you have to utilize it. It take you back to the old days when they had Fred Biletnikoff, Dave Casper, Cliff Branch.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Casper was always that sure-handed guy. You know, you didn't want to throw the ball at Biletnikoff because the ball had to go out of the game because he had so much stickum on it.
Was it stickum or was it peanut butter? You know he loved peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, Big C.
They outlawed it because him and
Lester Hayes, yeah. Lester Hayes, he could have had a glove story. You don't need the gloves the way he had somebody stick him on his hand, Big C. But just get him back. Go ahead, Big C. Go right ahead. Go ahead.
But Crabtree is that big, dependable receiver who's not afraid to go over the middle, makes an easy target for a quarterback.
Yeah. I tell you what, Big C. Also, when you look at that game, too, and what impressed me about Oakland, number one, Smith is a stud for Baltimore. I don't care what anybody says. Flacco had a great game.
He's a grown man playing football.
But I did take your advice. I started drinking a little bit of that moonshine. I like it better on ice, Big C. But I did say the Raiders would win if Flacco threw a pick. Now, his pick came on the 2-point conversion. Had they gone and kicked it, they would not have needed that field goal. They would have been able to win that game because the Raiders won it by 1. So the pick that the Raiders defense got, even though it was on special teams, it helped a lot. But think about this, Big C. When it comes to first downs, Baltimore had 25 first downs to the Raiders 13. They had 15 rushing first downs to the Raiders 11. But when it comes to passing, I think is the way that Carr is elusive, something that doesn't show up on the charts. This guy, he's he's like a what do you call Houdini? That guy that you got in your backyard tied up, Big C. Is that the guy you got tied up in your Escalade, Houdini? But Big C,
he gonna get out of there eventually.
He got out eventually, but he's so good at evading the rush, Big C. And I think that's why the Raiders won with Carr, and I think that's why the Raiders have a chance to displace Denver this year as the AFC West Conference champions. Your thought on that, Big C?
Well, Denver had an injury to Simeon.
Yeah.
Their starting quarterback. He injured his shoulder. He's going to be day-to-day. But I tell you what was so impressive was Paxton Lynch coming off the bench.
Oh, yeah.
First-round draft pick out of Memphis.
Yeah.
Throwing 3 touchdowns against Tampa Bay. Now, see, Lovie Smith would have gotten fired last year. The season being 1-3. What their cut is right now, that's the guy who replaced him, who was going to be this guru. You got to be careful what you hope for. Denver is just amazing, as far as what Kubiak is doing with the quarterbacks there.
Yeah.
And so the Raiders cannot afford to drop another game if they're going to challenge Denver. Now, they're going to place them twice head up.
Yeah.
They got Kansas City also to contend with in that division. So it's not an easy road in the AFC West, Charlton.
Well, all they got to do for Kansas City is watch what Pittsburgh did last night with the Roethlisberger, because that was a beatdown. I don't even understand that Kansas City showed up for that game, Big C, but more games around the NFL.
Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't playing the last night.
Yeah,
they had 6 picks the week before.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. Again, we talked about Dallas beating San Francisco, 24-17. I'm still waiting for the Bay Area media to say Gabbert's the guy that we need. They've only had 3 quarterbacks take them to the Super Bowl: Montana, Young, and also Kaepernick, and they don't seem to know where Kaepernick is, Big C, because he's still holding clipboards, Big C, for some reason in San Francisco. And
let me give you a point on what you just made, Charles. We talked about Young and Montana.
Yeah.
And we talked about Steve DeBerg earlier, setting that record for 9 interceptions in 2 games.
Yeah.
Steve DeBerg is the only NFL quarterback in NFL history. He had an 19-year career.
Yeah.
He started in front of 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Charlton. He started in front of Joe Montana. He started in front of Steve Young.
Yeah.
And he started in front of John Elway. All 3 of those guys are in the NFL Hall of Fame, and they all learned something from Steve DeBerg.
Isn't that something? You would think they would understand that. And again, I snippetly said that Chip Kelly's still auditioning for the USC job, Big C. It almost doesn't make any sense to take a quarterback that's been to the Super Bowl, the only one since 1995, and he's holding a clipboard, Big C. Also, speaking of holding a clipboard, this final segment is sponsored by Guaranteed Life Insurance with United Labor. Also, One Life America Life Insurance. We're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Also looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance brokers. To tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports if you're looking for work. And also by Beneath His Wings Foundations.org and CYNN Entertainment when it comes to promotions. Cynthia Evans, she's the best in Northern California. Also, the Los Angeles Rams. I love saying that name. They are actually 17-13 winners over Arizona. I don't even think it makes sense to say that Arians is in trouble. But Jeff Fisher's kind of riding the lucky streak right now, Big C. How are the Rams in first place in the NFC West, Big C?
Well, it seems like the NFC West is kind of weak this year, Charlton, when you think about it as a whole. You got the Cardinals, who were 13-3 last year.
Yeah.
The 49ers are worse than what they were last year.
Yeah.
The Rams have found a way to improve. They still haven't played their number 1 overall draft pick.
Yeah.
New Orleans just can't figure out, do they go on the field or go stay in the locker room?
Yeah. They got to win at least. They got to win at least at San Diego with Drew Brees, Big C.
Well, they hope, going back home, but they're going to be outside on grass. Things change when you're on grass.
That's true.
But, it's amazing what week to week and year to year does in pro football, Charlton.
Yeah.
High expectations. We got all these early season prognosticators of what occurred. All these experts who have the total insight on every team. You can't predict injuries. Minnesota Vikings, who would have thought they were undefeated going against the Giants tonight? If the Vikings don't do anything, Charlton, they just waiting on the 4th quarter because Eli throw the game away.
That's so funny.
They know he's good for a pick or 2 in the 4th quarter, so they'll just sit around and wait till the 4th quarter.
That's funny.
And then we won't even play it in.
Well, Big C, maybe you should stop sending him so much moonshine. Peyton Manning is sending him pizza, and by the time he gets the moonshine that you sent over, pizza and moonshine, they go together, but only when you have 1 glass, Big C. You didn't tell me about 1 glass. Okay. Now you tell me. There's no water in California to wash anything down, Big C. In the last 2 games of the NFL, the Denver Broncos over Tampa Bay by the score 27-7. And you talked about the injury they had there. Also, Kansas City at Pittsburgh last night, just getting bum rushed by the steel curtain defense, Big C. But I do want to touch on tonight's last game. the Monday night game with the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings. That was an 8:30 start on the East Coast. So just your thoughts on the Vikings, and they are so dominant right now, it seems, even without their quarterback in Bridgewater and also their star tailback in Peterson. I just want to get your thoughts on this game tonight. Is it a game? It's hard to go 4-0 in the NFL, Big C. Will New York get a lucky win tonight?
Well, Charlton, the tale of two teams is very similar this year. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you look at the Minnesota Vikings, okay?
Yeah.
Two teams with tremendous defenses. Two teams with quarterbacks that are playing that nobody had any preseason tape on.
Yeah.
Okay? With that team, Wentz only played a quarter or so in his first game before he got injured.
Yeah.
Bradford played no games with Minnesota until the second game of the season, so no one saw him in that offense.
Yeah.
So it's a little mesmerizing trying to understanding what they're going to do in those schemes. And so that has put defenses at a disadvantage, even though you've known the guy about through his career.
Yeah.
But when he's healthy, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. When he's not, which is most often, he's the same.
Yeah, that's right.
But that defense of the Vikings has just been tremendous.
Yeah.
Eli Manning throughout his career in the NFL has led the NFL in interceptions in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So teams like to get him to the fourth quarter, and he'll start pressing.
Yeah.
He has receivers that are talented, but they're greedy also, Charlton.
Yeah.
And great players want the ball all the time. So you can't have too many great receivers on one team. But he has three of them in New York. So how do you share the ball equally? And so that's the problem he's having. So he gets frustrated. He throws some balls errantly because guys are saying that they're open.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you have a pick, and we've seen it last week with them.
Well, Big C.
So the Giants have to avoid that temptation, especially Eli, of going to the guys with the big mouth.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And also, again, we talked about it earlier, the Ryder Cup, the USA 17, Europe 11, and we have baseball wild card starting up tomorrow. We have on Tuesday the Orioles at the Blue Jays. We have the Giants at the Mets. And then on Thursday, we have the Red Sox at the Indians and the Dodgers at the Nationals on Friday. I also want to just close the show by saying, Vince Scully provided so many great memories for everyone in the world of sports. 67 years. Great seeing him in a picture with Willie Mays. We know the great Dick Enberg retiring too. So the broadcast world is losing some experts in the game of broadcast and just guys that taught us all how to do it right, Big C. And speaking of doing it right, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide, you can follow Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network. We're the #1 platform in the United States for the sports audience. Also, I want to say they follow us throughout the universe, Big C. I even heard that Darth Vader is following Charlton and Big C Sports. You know that Captain Kirk and Spock is following us too, and you can also follow us every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network. We say no tolerance for domestic violence. If you see any woman in trouble, just call 911. We have to keep our women safe. And as we always say on every show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.